Hello and welcome to the Radiant Soul podcast with your host Shirley. Did you forget just how amazing, beautiful and powerful you are, my love? Did you forget how innately worthy, deserving and lovable you are, and how infinitely abundant and rich you are as a soul living right now in this moment? It's okay. We live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with messaging and marketing that tells us we are lacking, incapable or not enough. This is the podcast to disrupt that pattern. We're going to bulldoze some beliefs and behaviors that don't serve us, and we're going to remind you just how perfect, whole, and awesome you are right now, helping you live your best life with full agency and remembrance of why you are here. I'm Shirley, a lifelong dedicated radiant soul, and I'll be your host as we journey deep and have fun learning how to live a radiant soul life that is your best life. But first, I wish to acknowledge, and please forgive any mispronunciation, that this podcast is being recorded in my home in Montreal, also known as Tiohtià:ke, which lies on unceded Indigenous lands and waters, which the Kanyen'kehaka Nation is recognised as the custodians, and I honour them, this land, and my ability to bring this podcast to you from here. Thank you for joining me, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi, and welcome to today's episode of the Radiant Soul podcast. And I want to talk to you today about the difference between spiritual bypassing and being really committed to staying in the vibrational state, the vibrational frequency of the state that you wish to be in, that will draw in what you want to experience. And one of the problems that people have with manifestation and law of attraction is that it often creates this state outside of yourself where you're always trying to get to, where you believe that something that you want is there and that it's outside of you. And one of the things that I teach as part of the manifestation and the deep soul work that I do is about finding out what is it, this thing that we desire and that we want? What is it that we think it's going to give us? What is the state of being? And then we commit to that state of being. And there's a difference between spiritual bypassing and staying in the vibrational state of being that you wish to be. Because when you can stay in that vibrational state, then it's like you don't actually even need the thing anymore that you desire. And that's true alignment. That's when you're really at one with your God self, with your God presence, with your I am presence and awareness. And that is when you are whole and complete. And when you really can understand that you are God, that you are part of this creation. And you are whole and complete and you don't need anything. And it's funny that when you actually stay in that state and become that, then those things that you want sort of flock to you. But if you're trying to do it from a state of grasping, trying to get hold of, it's never going to work. It's never going to be right. And so what I want to talk today about is a bit difficult because there's I have in my head many different aspects and avenues, and I want to try and correlate it to so just bear with me because it's a little bit squiffy from in my head still. But my experience is, and I've been really learning this as well this week, I really sort of said I want to learn this. I want to really sort of grasp what the difference is between spiritual alignment and spiritual bypassing, because to me sometimes it felt like there was a spiritual bypassing element. So spiritual bypassing is often deemed as when things are shit and you're pretending they're not. So it's oh, love and light, everything's love and light, and it's clearly not. It right in front of you is something that could be really painful, really really traumatic, could be very violent, could be very abusive, could be very just off the scale in terms of what you can deal with. It could just be deep grief, it could be sadness, it could be anything. And yet if you're trying to love and light and be all positive because that way I'll get what I want, that's not real. That's spiritual bypassing. And that's basically not addressing what is in front of you, not addressing the emotions inside of you, not addressing any of that sort of the reality of the state, but it's different from, because I'm going to sort of contradict that in a minute and say that we actually have to sort of not focus on reality, but there is a difference between being in a state of present awareness and dealing with what is from a state of complete calm, present awareness, to pretending that what's going on isn't going on, and pretending it's better than it is, and pretending that we're all great, and like, you know, we're vibrantly healthy, when in actual fact we're not. We're deeply sick. And you know, and it's like spiritual bypassing is that sort of trying to force your brain to be something and to believe something that it isn't, by sort of forcing positivity on it. And that's not the same as being deeply committed to your vibrational state. So when I talk about this, like when I talk about something that we desire, so let's use health as the example, right? When we think of perfect health, it brings bliss to our being, and the state that we want from perfect health is one of wholeness, completeness, of well-being, right? Now, a state of well-being is very different to perfect health. So one can be saying like, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy, and literally, you know, very clearly ill and not healthy. Or one can be saying like, I'm ill, I'm dealing with this big illness at the moment, I'm dealing with, you know, feeling very awful. However, I have a sense of well-being. My sense of well-being is independent to my physical state. And the sense of well-being is the vibrational frequency that you want. It's that state of well-being, and it's not a forced state. It's one that you can actually really easily tap into. So you can look at it in the sense of, you know, like, okay, I'm really ill right now, but isn't it amazing that my body is still managing to breathe? Isn't it amazing that my body is still managing to process foods, or to keep me in a state of homeostasis so that I can actually heal? Isn't it amazing that my immune system is doing what it can right now to help? And if this is like too close, if say your immune system isn't working, if your digestive system isn't working, like, don't pretend those things are true. Like, find something that does give you a sense of well-being. Look out of the window, like, oh, you know, look at that bird flying by, or just sitting in the tree, or whatever it is, or the leaves just blowing in the wind. Those moments of connection can give you a complete sense of well-being, of just dropping back into peace, of dropping back into a state of wholeness and completeness that is different from trying to pretend that something isn't happening. It's different from trying to cover over the shit with glitter. You know, like, the end of the day, shit is still shit, and doesn't matter how many sparkles you put on it, it's still shit. So that's never going to work. But if you can really be present with the shit and be okay with the emotions that that brings, be okay with feeling ill, be okay with feeling angry about the situation, feel okay with feeling violated, like bringing moments of compassion and love to all of those states that come about helps you maintain the highest possible state, which is one of complete wholeness and well-being. Because if you are at war with what is, like, say, you know, for instance, let's use that example. Let's say the war, like there's a war going on right now between Russia and Ukraine. And I know, you know, especially for my friends and family in Europe, it's hugely close and sort of triggering for them. If you can still sit with that, but not fight yourself over how you feel about it, not try and like pretend it's not there, but bring compassion and love and peace. Like, where can you find those moments of peace? Like, even just closing your eyes and just taking a deep breath can bring a moment of peacefulness, bringing compassion and just assuredness and love to all of your emotions in this brings a sense of peace. And so then you're not fighting yourself, you're not creating a sense of conflict which is then being reflected in the outside world to you. So it's not spiritual bypassing, it enables you then to come from a very centered place of wholeness, of peace, of inner peace, and be able to then say, well, what can I do about this? And sometimes it's not our job to do anything about it unless we, like, if it was, we would be right in the middle of it, we would be there. But it's our job to sort of think, well, where am I at conflict with myself? Where can I just find those moments where I'm fighting myself and stop that? Like, stop fighting myself, stop trying to pretend that it's all love and light when it isn't, because that's spiritual bypassing. But being able to bring compassion and peace, that's commitment to your state of alignment. That's commitment to your vibrational frequency of peace. And do you see the subtle differences? One of them is trying to force peace, love, and light. Everything's great, everything's peaceful, like boom, boom, bombs going off in front of you. Versus, okay, right now I can breathe, I can just take a moment to center myself, and I'm going to be present and loving to everything that is. That creates a sense of peace within. And that is the commitment to the alignment. And one of the things that, you know, I've been realizing as well is that those emotions can still come up. Those emotions and feelings can still very much present themselves, and it's easy to think, oh no, I feel bad, like I must be doing something wrong. But the emotional guidance system is just a little sort of warning system of like, well, when you feel bad, you're out of alignment, and when you feel good, you're in alignment. And that alignment isn't about feeling positive instead of negative. It's about, how can I view this differently? How can I just take a moment to maybe just accept how I feel? You know, for me last night, I was very frustrated with my wonderful, beautiful teenage boy who wants to fight me on everything, especially bedtime. And I felt great anger, right? And while it doesn't serve to go into his room and be anger and be like, rah, you know, and obviously that happened a bit because I'm a fucking human. But like, me just being able to like take myself into the bathroom, that's what I did, is I took myself into the bathroom and I just cried and I felt really angry, and I allowed myself to express and feel the anger so that I could get past it, so that I could get to the point where I could be calm, where I could feel inner peace, where I could feel a sense of well-being within, and a centeredness and a stillness. And then I could then go back and approach the situation or not. I mean, I actually chose not. We'd had a fight, we'd solved the problem. He was in bed, and I didn't need to continue the fight, and I didn't need to stay in the past of the fight. I didn't need to stay in the field of resonance to anger, which I did feel, but I did need to feel the anger. I did need to acknowledge the anger, and I did need to sort of let it pass through my body, you know. And I do what I call silent rages, you know. I'll scream out loud silently because I don't want to make noise. There's people in the household asleep. We live, you know, with people below us and to the side of us. So I'll be like, you know, screaming quietly, but I allowed that anger to pass through my body. I didn't deny it. I didn't hold it to judgment. I didn't feel bad for feeling bad. I just was aware of it. Oh, right, I feel bad, which means that I have these emotions that need expression. Like, they need me to allow them to move through my system. They need to be witnessed. They need to be held and loved and not judged and pass through. And then very quickly, I was able to come back to a state of vibrational alignment with what I want, which is, you know, peace, desire, abundance, all of those things. And I was able to be in bliss, not because I forced anything, not because I pretended that the shit didn't exist, but because I dealt with the shit, because I allowed myself to look at it. I allowed myself to clean it up. And then I was allowed then to enjoy the glitter, the sparkles, like, because that's how I felt inside, you know, at its core. And through doing that, through being present and aware, then I'm able to understand, and then be able to come to the understanding of like what my son needs from me, how can I be a better parent, how can I show up in this moment. And so being committed to your vibrational frequency and your state is very subtly different to like sprinkling glitter on poop, because that's spiritual bypassing, and that's false, and it's pretense, and it's not real. But to be in the commitment to the better story, to be in the commitment to peace, and you'll find you'll get dragged back all the time. You know, it's very easy to, you know, say like, if you want and desire perfect health, like, but every time your body lets you down, you feel bad, like it's gonna keep pulling you back. But what you need to be committed to is the state of being that you think health will give you. And it's generally one of well-being, it's one of wholeness, it's one of completeness. And when you stop thinking everything is outside of you, and you start really feeling those moments of completeness and coming back to those, and allowing yourself to have the anger, allowing yourself to have the frustration, allowing yourself to have the sadness, because like if you don't, then that's not completeness, and so you're gonna miss feeling complete, right? So it's allowing those feelings and being present and non-judgmental of them allows them to shift through, allows them to move through your body, and that opens up so much more. It opens up that state of being. And so it's not about covering over what is with your state of being, but it is definitely about being more committed to this future story of well-being and bringing that into the present, because everything we want in life like is already within us. We're not separate from anything, and it's only our beliefs that separate us and make that distance. That distance is what feels icky, that distance is what hurts and what causes pain. And finding those moments where we do step out and being really committed to coming back. And it's not coming back through pretending what is real, but it is coming back through acknowledging that what is, but it's also it's a remnant of past thoughts and vibrations. It's not actually like, it's not actually the present. It looks like the present, but it's actually the past. It's your past emotions and vibrations, and reality can take a while to catch up with our new vibrations, right? So there's going to be a moment of discord between, you know, where you're at vibrationally and where you want to be and what's going on in your reality. And that could be hours, it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years. But the practice is to be more committed to that state of well-being, that state of wholeness, that state of inner peace, than you are to anything else. And like giving yourself the compassion, giving yourself the space, the love to course correct. Because I mean, like an airplane literally has to course correct continuously through flights, because it gets buffeted by winds and whatever else goes on there. I don't know, angels. But like, so you know, a pilot doesn't like berate himself for having to constantly course correct. It's just like, oh, that's where I'm going, and every time I go off, I just bring the plane back. Oh, and I go off again, I bring the plane back. And that's all that we do with vibrational alignment. We go off, we feel bad, something really triggers us, it really upsets us, it really not like brings all that fear to the surface or whatever. And then being committed to healing that, to going through the process, whatever it takes, to allowing it to express itself, to bring non-judgment to it, knowing that your true desires here, and keep coming back to that, knowing that what you're doing is using that contrast, using that trigger, using that pain to bring your awareness back to where you've gone off alignment, to bring your awareness back to like, oh, how how can I bring more compassion to myself right now? How can I be more loving? How can I, you know, how can I bring present awareness to this? Like, what am I feeling is lacking right now? How can I give that to myself in this moment where I am then able to just come back to center, come back to wholeness? And sometimes it's completely distracting ourselves. Sometimes it's like going for a walk or a run or looking out the window and just having that moment of breather, like locking yourself in the bathroom to breathe through it, to feel the feelings. Like, if go scream and cry and bash pillows on your bed if you're feeling angry and hurt, and that needs to come out and it needs to be expressed, and you need to bring compassion and love to it. So, but then the commitment is to come back. Like, you're not doing this to stay in that story. You're doing this to remind yourself that, like, that is in the way of your vibrational frequency. It's literally like, I don't know, a cloud. I'm trying to think of the aeroplane analogy. I'm like, but you can just go straight through a cloud. Anyway, but it's like an obstacle in your path. And like, you gotta sort of like acknowledge it. You can't just sprinkle glitter on it and pretend it's gonna go away. But you can like work through it, you can walk around it, you can examine it, you can let it go, and then you can come back to your preferred frequency. And everyone does this, like I was even watching an interview with Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is like this is his thing. He teaches throughout, and he has spent decades researching and all the science behind it. And he says he still reacts, like he still has to be committed to his vibrational frequency, to be that, be committed to work through his reactionary state to come back to alignment. And like, that can be as simple as just opening your heart and just breathing in that moment. And it's just really a powerful tool. And it isn't spiritual bypassing. It's being committed to the life that you want to create. It's being committed to the state of being you want to be in. And the irony is, like, the more you come back to this state, the more you are in this state, the less you actually want or need, the less turmoil and conflict there is. Like, the more beautiful life becomes, because there's no need anymore. And you're actually then able to reside in this I am presence, this like God state that is really pure and really deeply loving and compassionate, and is really present in the moment. Because you're not living in the stories, you're not living in the trauma, the fear, the stories that go on in your head, because you're whole and you're complete. And then you can bring like that present awareness and compassion and love that's just natural and is like a natural result of doing this work to what is in front of you. And then that's when it makes the greatest impact, right? That's when things magically happen, when people lift up themselves too, and those fights and conflicts with partners, children, whatever, sort of dissipate, or you're able to step up and be a much higher evolutionary version of yourself in those moments and create healing where there was disharmony or discord. So that's the difference, right, between spiritual bypassing, which is pretending everything's flipping great when it isn't, and being committed to soul alignment, which is deep, which is powerful, which is potent. And that's what I want to leave you with today, because every single one of us has the power to do this. And you might need to do it multiple times a minute, an hour a day. Like, that's normal. You're human. Like, don't berate yourself. Use your emotional guidance system where you feel good or bad to just course correct back. Oh, I've gone off a bit, course correct back. Oh, I've gone off again, and sometimes those conflicts are like just another desire that we haven't acknowledged, another area where we feel like we're not whole and complete and we can't have, or we're separate. So coming back to that state. And there's so many ways you can do it. Like, all of my Soul Shop episodes will help you. All of the episodes I get, have on here will help you. Meditations on my Insight Timer. That's an app, by the way, which I'm now on. Yay. yay me, I'm on Insight Timer. But there were meditations on there that bring you back to that state of calmness. You know, sometimes we just need to go read something. Sometimes we need to just go and have a bath. Sometimes we need to go for a walk. Sometimes we need to do a meditation. But the commitment is not to pretending everything's fine when it isn't. The commitment is to feeling whole and complete, and a sense of well-being and fullness and connection through whatever's going on, so that we can bring present loving awareness to whatever is going on. And that brings our best self, that brings our highest self. And that's the high evolved radiant soul, right? And we all have that ability to be that. And it's just how much are we committed to it? Because just doing an hour or 20 minutes of meditation a day and then spending your rest of your day in a completely different vibration, it's not going to cut it, right? I'm not going to beat around the bush. You're kind of setting yourself up to be living in a world where you're like, oh, like it's, you know, you've got to be completely committed, because otherwise you're always going to be flipping and flopping and flipping and flopping and flipping and flopping. And where, you know, I'll go back to this lovely airplane analogy because I'm enjoying that today, but like where the course correction is subtle, you know, if you're not committed, the course correction is like literally tilting the airplane side to side, side to side. You know, it's turbulent as hell, and you're going to start wanting to vomit very quickly. And you're going to want to get off that airplane. And that's what happens to most of us, right? You know, we do a little meditation and we get into alignment, and then we flip out because that's life, and life is always going to say, oh, you want this, let's make sure that everything that's in the way of this is like brought to your attention so you can deal with it and move through it, you know. But instead we kind of get caught back up in that story, and we literally go off, and we're lost, and we lose ourselves, and we lose our vibrational alignment. Before we know it, we are just reactionary again. We are living in the heaviness of reality, as opposed to using it as a way of moving through those emotions, letting them pass through our body, and then coming back to awareness, coming back to wholeness, coming back to your I am God presence. And that's where the potency is at. So, you know, where's your commitment? And don't berate yourself. Like the minute you start berating yourself, you're like completely at odds with yourself. So why would you do that? It's just, oh, okay, I've not been so committed today. Must make a little mental note. Oh, I'm going to be committed right now. And then you might forget about it again for hours, and then you might come back and remember. And gradually, the more and more you do this, the more it becomes habit, you know. And one of the things I suggest with my students is, like, when you're first starting with my clients is, you know, attach those moments of like coming back to centeredness to a activity or a habit or something that you do multiple times a day. And this is like habit forming, right? It's just, you know, if you go to the toilet, I don't know, 5-6 times a day, I don't know, I go multiple times an hour. But like every time you go to the toilet, like come back to awareness, like come back to that present self. Just take a moment of just centering yourself and being in peace, and just being in the I am presence, or in stillness, or in your desired bliss state, right? Whatever that is, like dropping into that for those moments. And like when you start to practice this throughout your day, and you attach it to something that you do multiple times a day, like maybe it's making a cup of coffee or a drink or whatever, or getting a glass of water, it then starts to become a habit. So that then when you're in the throes of life, and life is really, you know, throwing the curveballs at you, and I don't, oh my God, I can't do sports references. I don't even know what that means. Is it curb or curve? I don't know. Anyway, like, you know, when life is in the thick of things, and, you know, for me, like my teenage son is screaming down my neck, it's easier then for me to come back to centeredness, to come back to peace, and then be able to be committed to that state of well-being and wholeness and awareness and presence and love and compassion, which is kind of all one. And then acting from there, as opposed to reacting from this external thing in my face. And that's very different to spiritual bypassing. And that's what I want to get through to you today. And I am so grateful to have you here. I hope you like my new funky backdrop for YouTube. Going forward, this is going to be my new backdrop. I mean, I know I lose my shoulder occasionally, even some of my digits, but it looks fun. If you're on the podcast or on Insight Timer, then you can come and view on YouTube too and see me and in person. And it's been a pleasure. I love doing this work with you. I'm so excited to move forward with this. Like, for me, it's took months and months and months to get this and to get that soul alignment, and now to see the processes like happening and to see that coming into fruition in my day-to-day experience. And it's because I had to be so committed. And for me, it was a really deep journey because I'm teaching it, right? I knew I could teach this stuff. I knew it was there, but I knew that I had pieces of information missing. And so to me, it was like the commitment to the learning of this and the commitment to really being a master of this, has been hilariously fun. The universe certainly didn't give me what I wanted. Because for me, it's all been about learning continuously how to like fine tune that alignment and not spiritually bypass, not sprinkle glitter on poop, right? So it's this beautiful process, and I'm so grateful for it. And I am loving doing this work, and I'm loving having you here on the journey. I'm super excited for what's going to like unfold over the next few months as I sort of, get my confidence as well with teaching this, because for me, it's been a very private practice for years and years and years and years and years, except for my one-on-one painting clients that I work with. And so bringing it to fruition, bringing it out into the open and being far more vocal about it has been a journey for me, right, of growth and of coming up against my triggers and my fears and behave, the areas where I kind of want to scurry back to the old story. And the commitment to stay and the commitment to the process and the commitment to the vibrational alignment is just so much more rewarding and so much more beautiful, and like to the point where it's just like you begin to feel at one with everything. You really begin to like feel like the world is your playground and it's literally given to you to play in and to explore and to be curious in, as opposed to feeling like life is just there to bombard you. And it doesn't mean that the difficult stuff doesn't happen. Like in this whole process, I lost my mum, I've grieved, we've had many other griefs, like losses in our family. There was some tremendous difficult times, but being able to come back and bring that compassion, bring that peace, bring that loving awareness and stillness to the process has enabled me to deal with it and has enabled me to shift things and to work in my favor in a way that I could not have imagined. So it's a process. Be kind, be loving with yourself. Don't worry too much about what's going on in the reality in your physical world, because it is a reflection of past vibrations, right? It is a reflection of past beliefs, and it's there to help you course correct. It's there to help you, remind you of where you need to go, which direction you're heading in, which feels good, which is straight ahead, and which doesn't, which is like off alignment. So I wish you a beautiful day. Thank you ever so much for listening. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to share more with you. Take care. Bye. To find out more about how to work with me, then visit soulartbyshirley.com, where you can find out about commissioning your very own uniquely channeled radiant soul painting, purchase soul art and prints directly from the art shop, or join one of my courses. And if you love this podcast, then please share with your friends, leave a review, and hit the subscribe button so you won't miss another episode. Plus, as a thank you for leaving a review, take a screenshot of your posted review and send it to soulartbyshirley@gmail.com to receive a free copy of your Radiant Soul Hypnosis. Thank you for listening to the Radiant Soul podcast, and as always, I love you.